I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker dealer and member of FINRA SIPC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. My position disclosure is the exact same as it was yesterday. Okay. So market finished down, or slightly after hours, I guess, from the Micron earnings a little bit. SPY's down 0.2%. Qs are up a good bit more after hours, probably from Micron, but even with that, down 0.25% or so. And the IWM is down 0.6%. So we had a negative day today. Today's price action at the beginning of the day was kind of wacky. And then it just turned into an inside day, which became disappointing. But the round trip from the pre-market highs through the 10:45 a.m. high is like kind of wild. So I logged in this morning at around 5:45, probably, maybe slightly before that. We had already at that point just started a nice round down here from working towards the after hours. Working towards the Fed day highs. So pre-market we were up at almost 570. Started rolling down real hard. I logged in, we were probably a bit below 568, so dropped $2 in a short period of time, and we did not stop. I mean, this early sell-off here was really pretty wild. We were positive after hours yesterday afternoon. We were positive after hours, I think, most of last night with the futures market, and then we just rolled down real hard in this period. I mean, this is a very, very big pre-market move on no real news. It was being attributed to, some, dare I call them, rumors of escalation of Ukraine versus Russia and the war over there, with Ukraine doing some attacking, apparently, and it seemed like there was a degree of that was not true. Some of what was being posted online was not true. Maybe that impacted a little bit. But yeah, this market just got wrecked. I mean, we went from 570 to 562.50 in an hour and a half period of time in the pre-market, when things are usually a little bit quieter. Then we kind of did nothing with a little bit of volatility, and then at 9:30 when the market opened, we caught a bid that was the complete literal opposite of the sell-off, like in terms of duration and speed. So we 100% then retraced that pre-market move in a pretty short period of time. We did it in an hour and 15 minutes, which is about how long it took us to sell down. And then we found resistance. We found resistance at an area that made sense to find resistance, albeit disappointing that it happened that way. This move here off the open was sick. It was exciting. I was like, oh man, they're going to work on filling this gap and then maybe even overshoot us to the upside. It seemed like this market was feeding on itself. It was great. We had some good call outs for longs for immediately off the open. The market hardly paused on the gap fill, hardly paused at 566, or for the Qs, hardly paused at the gap fill, a little bit of a pause at 480, which was the key level. Then we more or less tore through it, got slightly extended here at like 10:05. We like rested through time and price for 12 minutes, bounced off the 80 MA, which is now I'm starting to think like, wow, if we can really start bouncing off this 80 MA on the 5-minute chart and create a continuation of higher highs and higher lows, well, the day after a Fed day has a higher probability of being a trend day. Great looking pivot low to a new high, rinse and repeat. We got a little bit extended, price corrected to the 80 MA, created a great pivot low that led to a new high. And then it was finally up here where I was saying this is a great spot to book some profit. I was optimistic. I wanted to see if we could make another higher low, or maybe like a 15-minute correction and then create new highs. But this was a great spot to book profit into yesterday's high, into the 570 area, which is a hugely important resistance now on the daily chart for the SPY. And we had our Iron Condor friend also with the upper band of that position a little bit above where we were trading. So it was kind of like three things all at once that I was looking at there that made me say, hey, there's a great spot to book some profit on longs. Maybe we can continue, but let's book a little bit. We gave them like a 15-minute time frame correction here at 11 o'clock, which is textbook. That's exactly when you would expect to see a 15-minute correction after such a strong move on a 5-minute chart. We attempted to create this pivot low at 11 o'clock, but then we make a lower high, and then we fail. And from that point on, things were kind of done. We weakened out a little bit. We rolled down. We stayed range bound. We stayed within the opening range, which, by the way, is within yesterday's range. So we actually had an inside day today. So it didn't turn into being like a full, beautiful, amazing trend day like we wanted. Even if the opening action was very exciting today, the pre-market through 11 o'clock or so was very exciting. And then it just got kind of crummy. Not great price action for the afternoon session. We rolled down definitely more than I wanted to see from this market. I would have been fine even if we made new highs with this market, like never really breaching below, let's call it this pivot low, these like double pivot lows here at around like 567.70. If we could have just ranged up there, created like an upper intraday range right in front of 570 resistance, that sometimes is a really nice bullish pattern that sets you up for them to break, because the underlying demand satisfies the overhead supply that's sitting at resistance, and then potentially sets you up for the breakout for continuation. But that's not what happened. We ended up breaking that pivot low at 11:35. Then it just seemed like the market was shot, and we pretty much did nothing for the rest of the day. Qs is pretty much the exact same story. Got into this really important resistance area that approaches 485 on the daily chart. Failed at it again. Pulled back too deep. Didn't exactly close well. No sound and blank page. Can anyone else not hear me? Can someone tell Sam to try to restart his virtual trading floor? I would tell him, but he can't hear me. Thank you. So anyway, that's what the market did. Let's take a look at these daily candles to see if they're giving us anything. I don't know. Nothing to be excited about. We have an inside day yesterday. So we have an inside day today with an upside tail that's greater than I would want to see it from it. It's not impossible for us to still break through 570 and be able to get that upside continuation to the 21 EMA, or again, overshoot the 21 EMA. I would just say, though, with every passing day, that reward profile on that bounce gets reduced. I do think that in a more bearish scenario where we're unable to get that continuation, I do think that we have some degree of a floor in this market through the rest of March. We'll see what happens after OPEX. Sometimes OPEX can create a little bit of a loosening effect, and that can impact the market in either direction. But with where we're currently trading in the index level, the end of quarter rebalance number is so large. Last I saw, it was like $32 billion or something like that. That in and of itself might be enough to actually create a floor underneath this market, at least through the rest of the month. And then it's just a matter of, can we actually get some upside? So I'm not ruling out the upside continuation of a broader bounce in this market. I'm just saying that every passing day that goes by where we don't get it, it becomes a little bit more difficult to get, and that the reward profile on continuation of that bounce potentially gets reduced. So we know our key levels. Key levels are very obvious. We have 3 upside tails into SPY 570. So 570 is really important. The 21 EMA is working its way lower. It's at 574 spot 60 right now. It'll be even lower than that tomorrow. And then I still think that this potential higher low pivot is important around 559 in the SPYs. So 559 on the downside area, 570 on the upside. Really important. For Qs, it's 485. So 480 is important. 485 is now becoming really important. 3 upside tails into 485. Still a lot more room on the Qs to the 21 EMA if they want to break higher. But they've been relatively weak. So 485 on the upside. 480 is also important. I see we closed right around there. And then the pivot low point that we should pay attention to is 472 spot 41. And then for the IWM, yeah, I don't know. The Russell overall has been better. It's made its way almost to the 21 EMA. But another, just not a great candle from the Russell today. Though it is an inside day, and maybe I shouldn't be overreading it. It's not impossible. It's not impossible across the board to get an inside and up. But we have to actually break above those levels, and then we can see if we can break above those levels, what kind of feedback cycle we get to the upside. So I would say I'm generally less bearish or slightly more optimistic, at least through the month of March here. I think that we have some support just from like a market dynamic perspective. The question is, can we get follow through? And then we'll see what happens post OPEX, and we'll see what happens if we get into April. Because for the moment, my thought process is to once again become less bullish as we get into April. So from a positioning perspective, I've been pretty long. It's paid me decently here since Friday of last week, which is great. But now I'm hitting a point where it's like, all right, if I'm seeing more of a time correction than a price correction, I also need to be starting to reduce a little bit of that long exposure as well. So my ideal situation is still that we break higher and I can reduce long exposure into a bigger up move and bank a lot of money. But if we continue to go sideways here, I did it in a very, very small way into the close today. Every day that goes by, I am going to just take off just a little bit more on my long exposure and a little bit more on my long exposure probably into the close to account for a reduction of my size through time, though I would prefer for my reduction of size to happen through price. So that's pretty much all I have on the index level. As far as individual stocks go, the excitement was all from the beginning of the day, from that opening move. There was a few things that I liked this morning that we kind of mentioned in the morning meeting. There were some in-play names that I liked, like Carvana, to see if we could get continuation. Carvana long through, reversed that 180 area, pretty much opened up at that 180 and just ripped. So that one worked out pretty well. What did this Kava do? Kava was another call out from the morning meeting today. Gave great follow through if anybody was able to capture that. Again, most of the stuff you had to be able to get in the beginning of the day. COTY was a failure. That's disappointing. GEO worked a little bit, but nothing too exciting. And then we called for a Palantir long to see if it could break higher. But the Palantir price action was weird. I didn't like how it traded in the beginning of the day here. This like first half hour, it seemed like it was relatively weak, and then it broke out and it broke up and it finally went. And $88 was that key spot that we had discussed in the morning meeting today. So worked okay, but then when the market failed, it failed despite being relatively strong also. So that was all good. We talked about a meta trade potentially at the open versus like 580 in the morning meeting. That one worked great. I mean, Meta and Amazon in the beginning of the day were the absolute and utter leaders. And then when the market rolled over, they had pretty big rollovers themselves. But Meta off the open, just an absolute rip off that 180. The other one that we talked about to see if we could get some continuation from in the morning meeting was Amazon. Amazon long, I think, mentioned versus yesterday's low. That was phenomenally strong in the beginning of the day. They'll also rolled over pretty bigly in the afternoon when the indexes did as well. So that's all I got. I am happy to answer any questions that any of you guys have before I go hop into the backcountry and do a little bit of skiing this afternoon. So what do you guys got? What do you guys got? Bill letting me know that SPY and MDY. What is MDY? Oh, the mid-cap one. Duh. SPY and MDY go ex-dividend tomorrow. Still open lower with the dividend taken out. The chart will look more bearish, less bullish from that chart for the radar. Yeah, that's especially when I like to look at the SPX daily chart just because it's not as skewed by the dividend. Oh, and then the Qs do it, and the Spider ETFs have their ex-dividend on the 24th. Okay, great to know. Thank you. Cool, not seeing anything else in the YouTube for the moment. Oh, hold on. Going forward, do you think we going to have to wait until tariff deadline to get an idea of sentiment. Um, I don't know because I don't necessarily think that we have to wait for the tariff deadline because things could change at any moment. I think we saw some headlines this morning about some tariff negotiations that were already beginning to happen. So obviously, by April 2nd, we'll know if additional tariffs are being turned on or not. But it's not impossible for there to be a headline any day where the headline is, where we've come to an agreement where we're reducing our expected tariffs, or we've also seen from the administration where they decide to ignore their deadline and just put the tariffs on early. So I would just say be prepared for anything from a headline perspective related to tariffs at any time. But April 2nd is a pretty important date, generally speaking. Thanks for the question. Yeah, that meta fade was nasty. Looking at the YouTube now. What's up, Robert? Crazy buying out of the gate in the spies. Yeah, which is why it was so disappointing that we rolled down as much as we did. Running out of steam on that upside move is one thing, but rolling down as much as we did to create that upside tail in the indexes is I think pretty disappointing after that opening strength. Yeah, reciprocal tariffs are set for April 2nd, so we'll see what happens. What width of skis do you ride for the backcountry? I use 105 millimeters. My backcountry set that I use is actually 116 underfoot, and then I've got another set, but it's doesn't have the right bindings for skinning, so they're for inbounds only that are 101s. But yeah, my 116s are boats. I love them. They're the Armada White Walkers, Sammy Carlson skis. Yeah. From Apex Joy, what do you think of Futu from a swing perspective? So Futu and Tiger tend to trade somewhat together. And I may have missed news here. I may have missed some news here just a couple days ago on Tiger because Tiger ripped and broke out and Futu did not. So generally speaking, in the shorter term, it makes me like Tiger more. Futu, I think, looks okay as long as it holds above 105. I wouldn't want that to lose 105. I think that there is a potential that we need to keep in mind for where even though I'm a bull bigger picture right now on Europe and China equities, I am of the thought process that if we get a bigger bounce in the market, that it might just be like that there's a potential of like a mean reversion trade where Europe and China are weak into an up move from US stocks, bounce back from US stocks. So I would just keep that in mind. Cool. All right. Anything else? I definitely don't mind doing a quick one today because I'm gonna be getting out of here in a little bit earlier than I usually do. From Liam, how much do you look at weekly and monthly charts? Some of the monthlies are starting to look a little scary. Not that much. I'm not a huge fan of doing technical analysis on those huge time frames, especially the monthly charts. I do reference weekly charts. Sometimes it's just a good exercise to reference them, but I primarily focus on the daily chart. That's my number one, and then my execution charts on the small time frame, and then occasionally I'll just look at like a weekly from a referencing perspective. Thanks, Robert. All right, gang. I'll wrap it up then. Doesn't seem to be any other questions for today. Have a great night. I'll see you all tomorrow.